Hi there, DO. This is Michael, and I am from the OTC online TOEFL course, and you're one of my 30-day TOEFL writing bootcamp course students. And my goodness, and you joined my course on I think July 20. You've already completed at least 4 writing practice tests. So practice makes perfect, and that's exactly what you need to do. The only way you can get better as a writer is by doing, and more doing. You can watch videos all day long, but until you start actually writing and revising your writing and then doing more writing, you will not see results. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do the second error correction video. So as a writing bootcamp course student, right? So you will get a 30 to 60 minute error correction video of one independent and one integrated writing practice test. Now this is the second independent writing practice test, so I'm guessing that you want to focus more on that task, and that's fine. And you can also do an additional 15 independent and integrated writing practice tests. That means together. And you also have unlimited access to all of my lessons at my website. Let's take a look at the topic. So this one we have some people think government should spend as much money as possible exploring outer space. For example, traveling to the moon and to other planets, and I think right now they're talking about going to Mars in the next few years. It says other people disagree and think governments should spend this money for basic needs on Earth. Which of these two opinions do you agree with? Use specific reasons and details to support your answer. And that's exactly what you did, right? So this is what you wrote here, and I'm going to spend a minute here. I'm going to read it quickly, and I'm going to give you my first impressions based on the official TOEFL IBT rubrics, and I'll give you a score. After reading the essay, I'm putting you at 4.0, 25 points out of 30. That would be my estimation. So I'm going to score this one slightly lower than the essay that I gave you 28 points on. Okay, so 4 says, it addresses a topic and task well, though some points may not be fully elaborated, is generally well organized and well developed, displays unity, progression, and coherence, though it may contain occasional redundancy, digression, or unclear connections. Displays facility in the use of language, demonstrating syntactic variety and range of vocabulary, though it will probably have occasional noticeable minor errors in structure, word form, or the use of idiomatic language that do not interfere with meaning. So that seems to fit your essay. Okay, let's do the first thing. I'm going to read through the whole thing. My problem, the reason I didn't give you a higher score, is this paragraph here. The destruction of the earth does not seem like an immediate concern. But how does that relate to your thesis here? That government should not spend a lot of money exploring outer space, or no, spending money on space does not seem like making the best use. Government should spend more on preserving the earth. So I think you should say they should spend more on helping the poor and also on preserving the earth, right? So I think that this paragraph, instead of focusing more on the counter argument, you kind of have two ideas in the paragraph. This is the problem I have, is you're focusing a lot on discovering other inhabitable plants, but then you talk about spending more money on replanting trees and protecting wildlife. So if you try to go in both directions in the same paragraph, you're not going to get deep enough in any one area. So you lose the focus, I think, that you need. So that's my biggest problem with the essay. But let's go ahead and go through the grammatical corrections, and then I'm going to show you how I would restructure the essay. But remember, it's still a good score. Since the development of I'm going to put the human civilization, people have been constantly interested in exploring outer space. However, it is undoubtedly true that it takes up a considerable amount of money to develop the necessary machinery required to travel to space, such as rockets and satellites. While opponents may claim otherwise, in my opinion, it's much more practical for governments to spend money on more tangible issues. Spending money on space does not seem like making the best use of the citizens' taxes. And I think here, you want to make this a plural possessive noun, as governments have yet. If you say yet, I'd probably say to eradicate. Have yet to eradicate hunger from the respective countries, and government should spend more money in preserving, spend more money on, spend on, not in, preserving the earth. Thus, it seems much better that government should not spend a lot of money exploring outer space. Okay. First, government should spend more money on welfare issues like helping people in poverty. In my opinion, it is the government's priority to take care of the citizens rather than any other matter. Yet many people are roaming the streets, completely malnourished with their ribs probing out of their skin. Good description. Governments should spend money in giving these people financial aid and creating more jobs rather than investing in space exploration. According to the New York Times, an eminent newspaper company, the U.S. spends approximately $8 billion annually in space exploration. In this regard, they have, you might say, maybe indeed, or in fact, been able to establish many feats, including recreating a high-pixel image of a black hole. However, many people remain unable to meet the basic standards of living, and consequently, many meet untimely deaths due to cancer, due to starvation, and other poverty. You can put poverty maybe related illnesses. If the government had spent the same amount of money on supporting their low income citizens, these people would have gotten better food and clothing. Thus, I think it is more instrumental for governments to solve more desperate issues rather than loftier matters like space exploration. Okay. Secondly, the destruction of the earth. This is where I'm having the trouble, though. You want to add to what you've said, right? So the topic sentence in the previous paragraph talks about spending money on welfare issues. So then here, we need to kind of rearrange this. So I think I'm going to make some changes with this topic sentence to show you how you can connect it back to the thesis. Okay, with your second paragraph, I wanted to give you a topic sentence that more logically followed the one before. So let's look what I did. And I got rid of a lot of the counter argument about the exploration. I put it in the topic sentence, but only as a support point. So it says, secondly, instead of searching for habitable planets and exploring water sources on Mars, government should allocate funds toward replanting trees and protecting wildlife. For example, up to 2/3 of all the trees in the rainforest in Brazil have been cut down. Brazilian trees are vital to the world's ecosystem because they clean the air by taking in carbon dioxide and injecting fresh oxygen into the atmosphere. In addition, rainforests lessen the effects of climate change by helping to conserve water and to preserve the soil. Lastly, trees in Brazil's rainforest provide a safe haven for all sorts of exotic and endangered animals. As a result, developed countries with the financial means can earmark specific funds to help Brazil replenish its rainforest. In this way, people should be able to continue to inhabit the earth rather than, because you said to inhabit rather than move, so this is a parallel structure issue. So if you say to inhabit rather than to move, and it's possible to omit the preposition in that second infinitive, but I would definitely use the base form of the verb and not a gerund here. So they should continue to inhabit the earth rather than move or to move to another planet. Thus, I believe government should try to protect the earth's environment rather than allocating resources for finding maybe other planets. I made this a little more formal, on which we can possibly live. Then you have your conclusion. According to the fact that governments have yet to solve their country's hunger issues, and finding other planets to live on is extremely irresponsible. I'm going to put, and that they need to replant So according to the anchoring on the fact that governments have yet to solve their countries, want to make this plural possessive noun, to solve their country's hunger issues, and that they need to replant trees and to protect wildlife, I think governments, no need for I think, just say government should not spend a surmountable amount of money on exploring then maybe put instead, they should rather spend money on more immediate and more critical issues that they're facing. Okay, so that's kind of what you can say there. So I think what I tried to do is I tried to keep it more focused, not on the disadvantages of space exploration, but the benefits of spending money to meet Earth's needs. I tried to frame it where you're focused on that, and then you don't have to go back and forth between those two arguments, and that makes it a little more complicated, and it takes away how much detail and examples and things you can give to help support the argument you're trying to make. So which of these two opinions you agree with? You agree with spending money on the basic needs on Earth. To me, focus most of your discussion on that, not on why it's a waste of money to spend on exploring outer space. And I made some changes in your introduction here, and I think it's better that you end by focusing around the thesis, focusing on the benefits of spending more money on Earth's basic needs. So this is what I did here. Since the development of the human civilization, people have been constantly interested in exploring outer space. However, it is undoubtedly true that it takes up a considerable amount of money to develop the necessary machinery required to travel to space, such as rockets and satellites. Okay, now here's the counter-argument. This is the change I made here. Is I included the counter-argument as a dependent clause, as a support point. But then I put your argument as the main idea. And then I have another sentence which further illustrates your main point. So it says, while opponents might claim that spending money on space makes the best use of the citizens' taxes, governments should spend money on more tangible issues. Therefore, governments need to set aside most of their money to lift people out of poverty and to preserve the earth by planting more trees and by protecting wildlife. To me, that gives the thesis, it helps give the essay a very clear direction of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to argue. So, based on this thesis, then we have these body paragraphs. So, let's read it one more time. Says, firstly, government should spend more money on welfare issues like helping people in poverty. In my opinion, it is the government's priority to take care of the citizens rather than any other matter. Yet, many people are roaming the streets, completely malnourished with their ribs probing out of their skin. Governments should spend money in giving these people, how about say, hence, or maybe we'll put it here, cause effect. Hence, government should spend money in giving these people financial aid and creating more jobs rather than investing in space exploration. According to the New York Times, an eminent newspaper company, the U.S. spends approximately $8 billion annually in space exploration. In this regard, they have in fact been able to establish many feats, including recreating a high-pixel image of a black hole. However, many people remain unable to meet the basic standards of living, and consequently, many meet untimely deaths due to starvation and other poverty-related illnesses. Now, I wanted to put this in here. It kind of ties back to the welfare point that you made earlier. If the government had spent the same amount of money on supporting the low-income citizens, or if you want to say governments, these people would have gotten better food and clothing. Thus, I think it is more instrumental for governments to solve more desperate issues rather than loftier matters like space exploration. Secondly, instead of searching for habitable planets and exploring water sources on Mars, government should allocate funds toward replanting trees and protecting wildlife. For example, up to 2/3 of all the trees in the rainforest in Brazil have been cut down. Brazilian trees are vital to the world's ecosystem because they clean the air by taking in carbon dioxide and by, maybe I'll put it in there, and by injecting fresh oxygen in the atmosphere. In addition, rainforests lessen the effects of climate change by helping to conserve water and to preserve the soil. Lastly, trees in Brazil's rainforests provide a safe haven for all sorts of exotic and endangered animals. As a result, developed countries with the financial means can earmark specific funds to help Brazil replenish its rainforest. In this way, people should be able to continue to inhabit the earth rather than move to another planet. Thus, I believe government should try to protect the Earth's environment rather than allocating resources for finding other planets on which we can possibly live. So, I mean, your paragraph is good, but my point is you were kind of focusing in those two areas. So I really laser focused the paragraph where you're focusing just on the replanting the trees and protecting the wildlife, and that's exactly what you do in most of the paragraph. So that's going to show a little bit more depth, that you can stick to an idea, you can focus on that specific idea. Then the conclusion, anchoring on the fact that governments have yet to solve their country's hunger issues and that they need to replant trees and to protect wildlife, governments should not spend a surmountable amount of money on exploring space. Instead, they should rather spend money on more immediate and more critical issues that they are facing. Okay. So that's it. So I think overall, I mean, I would give you over 24. I'm giving you 25 points on the essay. So, and you can argue with Michael, maybe my way is better or whatever, but I think it's better to focus your ideas around the one argument than trying to focus on the two or the opposite argument, which kind of takes away some of the detail and the support for the argument you're trying to make. Anyway, thank you for doing this writing assignment. So I hope this gives you further help on how you can write for the TOEFL exam and how you can increase your chances of getting the perfect score, 30 points out of 30. So great job.